Good afternoon, everybody. It is Monday, October 6th. It is 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and this is Admissions Live. I'm your host, Chris Dorso, and today on the show, we are going to talk about that forgotten group in our enrollment plans. That is your transfer students. First, Admissions Live is part of the Higher Ed Live network. Higher Ed Live is a series of professional development web shows and podcasts which are always free and accessible to you in our archives at higheredlive.com as well as on iTunes. Be a part of our broadcast by tuning in live and sharing your insights and questions using the Higher Ed Live hashtag. And you can receive weekly updates with live show dates and times by subscribing to the Higher Ed Live newsletter at higheredlive.com. Today's show would not be possible without the support of all of my colleagues here at Stony Brook University, as well as all of our friends at M. Stoner. All of our Higher Ed Live shows, including Admissions Live, are produced by M. Stoner, which is a marketing and communications firm that works with educational institutions on branding, strategy, web design, and more. In October, M. Stoner is hosting two awesome webinar series. The first is a three-part series on analytics and higher ed, and the second is a two-part series focused on brand strategy. So you will, there's a link going out at the Higher Ed Live account where you can learn more and you can register online for those programs. As enrollment management continues to develop as a profession, Abilene Christian University has addressed the need for an academic credential to help you set yourself apart. Designed to be completed in 10 to 12 months, ACU's online graduate certificate in enrollment management provides mastery of the profession in a flexible format for working professionals. And you can learn more at acu.edu/enrollment management. College visits made simple. Mission at Welcome to College is to help students find colleges where they will flourish. And as such, Welcome to College has created the MARV Fitology Workshop for campus tour guides. This program weaves the science of happiness with the power of the campus tour. Tweet at Welcome to College. That's welcome, the number 2 college, to learn more. And Zinch is a service of Chegg that helps colleges and universities save time and money while connecting with best fit students throughout their college search. Zinch partners save up to 90% the recruitment cost of generating a single enrollment for their institution while putting students first in their recruitment outreach. Email outreach@zinch.com or tweet at socialadmission to get in touch with your institution's dedicated Zinch representative today. All right, so with that, we are going to get cracking with our guest this afternoon. Our guest is the co-director of the Graduate Certificate in Enrollment Management at Abilene Christian in Abilene, Texas, and that is Corey Patterson. And Corey, welcome. You're going to need to unmute yourself there. Why am I not unmuting you? Technology.
How's that?
Oh, hang on, I remuted you. Unmute yourself.
How's that?
There you are. Hey, all right, technology. We got this.
Hey, how are you guys?
So, Corey, talk a little bit about your journey through admissions and enrollment management.
So, in 1999, I was selling building materials, selling rebar, you know, the stuff that you make concrete with, which was just so rewarding and so fulfilling that I decided that I wanted to get back into working with people. Got in as an admissions counselor at Abilene Christian University. Spent about 4 years doing various duties between admissions counselor to becoming a director of recruiting, then working with sophomores and juniors as they've started looking earlier at attending college. And then in 2006, which about 7 years later, after starting at ACU, 2006, I got an offer and bolted for Nashville, Tennessee. I was the assistant VP for enrollment at Lipscomb University in Nashville. Spent exactly 2 years there before I figured out that home called and ACU came calling and saying, hey, we'd like you to come do some stuff back here. So my wife and family and I made the journey back to Abilene after spending 2 years in that role at Lipscomb. Was the director of enrollment marketing for about 3 years in our undergrad department, and now I serve as the director of graduate operations in our graduate school, and the co-director of our enrollment management certificate, which has been fully up and running for about a year now.
Wonderful. So we talk about enrollment management as a term, and it's, I suppose, a relatively new term in higher ed circles. You know, people know us as admissions offices, and we're still an admissions office, public facing. But there's really been a shift in the last couple of years from thinking about admissions as this sort of island where all we do are the salespeople of the university, to that real holistic approach of enrollment management and what that really is. And I really enjoy that shift. My background as a student affairs guy, it's not just about bringing in high school students and obviously bringing in transfers, which we're going to talk about, but it's more than that. It's making sure that whole spectrum of academia is covered, and it's not just about getting them in, but it's keeping them here and making sure that they persist, and then making sure that that persistence then turns into graduation. And that can't just be a cosmetic change. It's got to be across university lines, and that's where that sort of enrollment management piece really comes in, to make sure that all those resources are there to make sure that students are being successful.
Right, and so when I started in admissions in '99, it was all, this is an indictment on the system back then, but it was all about reaching your number. And so if I had to bring in 176 students from the Fort Worth and Dallas area, then I did whatever I could to bring in those 176 students. It wasn't about, hey, we need to make sure this is the right thing for them, the right thing for their families, making sure that they have the right pathway to graduate. Did we offer the right major even? It has evolved a ton to this holistic view of enrollment management, and that's really why we created the certificate, because we want to continue to educate people on how the evolution continues. And it starts with strategic enrollment planning, and everybody listening to this knows this, but yeah. It starts with that strategic enrollment plan. You guys are the ones that are going to make a difference. It starts with that strategic enrollment planning, to the recruiting, to the marketing, to the pricing, to the financial aid, to all the mechanisms you have between orientations and advising and degree tracking, all the way out to graduation. So it's a huge shift from, hey, we just want them in the door, to we want the right students in the door to make sure that they graduate, because it really, ethically, when we're charging as much as we are as a practice, we've got a responsibility as people to make sure that they graduate, because if they leave with this huge amount of debt, we're just doing them a giant disservice. And I don't know how people can look at themselves in the mirror now if they still have that mentality of, hey, I just want them in the door just to make my number so I get a raise. I mean, you're crippling these kids. Yeah. So I think especially the majority of the people and everybody watching this has taken that shift, but there are still some outliers out there.
Very true. So how do transfers fit into this? I'm going to sort of throw two real quick studies out on the table. There's the National Student Clearinghouse is a clearinghouse, hence the name, that takes all the data, and they've got 2.8 million student records in there. It's anonymous, don't worry. And so what they do is they track where students go. They track transferability, they track graduation rates, they track all those kinds of things. And 2012, they looked at students transferring, and I'll tweet out this link in a second. And the students were counted as transfers if they enrolled at a second institution before earning a degree. So we're not talking about students who get an associate's degree and then move on to a four-year program, but a student who starts at a community college level and then jumps over, or starts at a four-year program and jumps to a community college, or takes a summer class, or anything. When we talk transfers, we're talking about really any sort of transfer credits. So all of that counts as transfer students. And they found that a quarter of those who transferred did so more than once, and that the greatest number of moves, more than a third, took place during the student's second year. So it's not just about freshman retention, and freshman retention is important, but students leaving middle of their second year, after their second year. Also, same study found that 43% of those transfers, almost half, were to public two-year institutions. So people think about the traditional transfer student as somebody who goes to a community college and then goes to a four-year program. More than half of those, and this is clearinghouse data, this isn't a survey, found the opposite, was that students were actually going the other way, from four-year programs or from programs to two-year institutions. I can't say from 4 years. And then the following year, another clearinghouse data, and this came out earlier this year, that most students who do transfer from 2-year to 4-year programs do that without receiving a degree. So most students are in that, hey, I'll take a bunch of credits and then I'll transfer. The associate's degree is not necessarily that intermediate goal or a goal of any kind. And also an interesting stat that bachelor's degree attainment, baccalaureate degree attainment was actually higher for folks who did complete that associate's degree, 72%, than for those who transferred without, which is 56%. And if you know the national grad rates, that really falls in line with folks who are starting as freshmen, and look at the 6-year national grad rate is 59%. And so students who are transferring are graduating, they're persisting. The data is sort of funny, and it's not always, it doesn't always fit into the U.S. News categories, for the folks upstairs, but it's really relevant to what we're doing as institutions to make sure that we're addressing transfer students. Your thoughts?
So, yeah, transfers are an audience that is a lot like disco. They exist. Some people just pretend that they don't. But they're super important, and really I wrote down a few reasons why I think that is. And one, and I think the most important reason, is their academic ability. So if you look at retention research all over the place, will tell you that first semester GPA is that predictor of retention. Well, transfers already have that. They've already completed those classes. You already know what their GPA is, and so they've already got that demonstrated academic ability, and you know that when they come, that they can make it in the classroom. Now, other factors may work in with the financial piece, or the boyfriend or girlfriend at home, or homesickness, or whatever. All those crazy things we can't put our finger on. But the academic ability piece, that's kind of a non-issue because you know they can make it. The next thing is that if your campus is full, you're at capacity, transfers can really grow your enrollment without putting a lot of pressure on your residential environment, because they'll come in, and if you require students to live on campus their first 2 years, and they come in after that, well, you don't have to provide residence halls or big meal plans for those people because they live off campus. I know that's the case here. There is the retention rates and their academic success. They've already come to that conclusion about college, that their major is a good fit for them. They don't think, well, I don't know if I really want to go to college. Why am I doing this? If they're transferring, that they're committed to their degree and to getting that degree. And basically, all the hurdles that trip up freshmen, the transfers already overcome all those. Diversity. A lot of the community colleges now have large populations of those high-ability first-generation students who are normally underrepresented in many of our institutions, so the transfers can help shape that class. I know if you're in the business of shaping your class, this is a big draw, that you can go get somebody who in this major with this ethnic background or this financial background, and there's a lot of diversity, and not just racial diversity. There's all kinds of different diversity that you can pull from those community colleges. And then finally is you kind of balance that class. So you're not going to take if you bring in a lot of freshmen, then your classes are unbalanced. Well, if you bring in a lot of freshmen and you have a lower retention of freshman to sophomore, you can go get sophomores to kind of have that cohort balance, and then other majors that may not be at capacity because your freshmen aren't picking them, you can go and try to find those community college students who are in those degrees, who can help fill out those majors and fill those classes, so that your faculty who are tenured and who aren't leaving or aren't going anywhere are teaching classes of 4 and 5 people. So that's what I kind of feel on the transfer piece, why they're so important. The clearinghouse data is key to that. I know that we are very reactive as a group to transfers, because if you're going out to other I'm not going to Stony Brook and I'm going to recruit transfers,
Right.
But I do go to community colleges. You're welcome, Chris. It's a different deal when you're talking 2-year and 4-year, and so what we're going to talk about, what I want to talk about a little bit is how to become transfer friendly. And so with that, I'll turn it back to you.
All right. So how do you do? I think you had so many great without reflecting. I'm hearing myself back.
Yeah.
That was not
I
happening.
lost you for a second.
All right.
Try again.
Hello.
Okay, you're good.
I don't know why I'm hearing myself back. All right, so I'm still hearing myself back as I talk. I'm going to mute you on the back end here, then unmute yourself.
Okay.
I don't know what happened there. All right, Corey, I've muted you for a minute. So just unmute yourself when you want to respond. To talk about really that class shaping piece is so very, very important. We're all dealing with, a lot of us are dealing with class availability issues, for example. It's something I know we deal with here with, chemistry and calc and freshman English and all those kinds of things, where there's a limited number of space in those classes. And the perk of getting those transfers who are further along in that cycle, they've got a lot of that stuff out of the way. And as you said, we know they can do it. These are students who have gone through that introductory calc sequence. They've gone through that introductory bio or whatever it is, and that's a space that you can then push into some of your upper division classes where maybe, as you said, you may only have 4 or 5 people in that class. And so as you're sort of finding that balance of class availability and programs that need enrollment, there's a real way to massage that by using transfers the right way. So how can we do that better? How can we do that in a way that makes a lot more sense?
Okay, reframe that question for me, because one of the things that when I wanted to jump in, I'm thinking more. I mean, you're talking some of the chemistry and biology classes, which is probably there. With us being a liberal arts university, not a research, we're seeing some of those class deficiencies in things like art and education, classes that are not traditionally high-paying careers. And so all of our students, when they come here, they're paying a huge premium at a private institution, and so they want majors that are going to be able to pay off those loans. And so we're seeing it on the different end, and we're seeing those liberal arts degrees, those soft touch degrees maybe, that have the lower classes. And so that's where we go and find the community college people that have a lower debt load, that may be willing to take a little higher debt load because they know, hey, I've only got 2 years to do this, or I've got a year and a half that I'm not going to have to pay, that I'm going to pay, but I've already gotten 2 years plus another semester somewhere in art. So I don't, when I'm a starving artist, I'm not paying off $80,000 worth of loans.
And that really comes with knowing your population. I mean, that's understanding and really knowing across the spectrum and making sure that you're, as a dean of admissions, being aware of where those issues are and finding out, making sure that you're in touch with your provost or your academic deans or whoever makes those decisions about class availability. It's very easy for me, obviously, as you said, coming at it from the research university perspective, to think about calc and physics as the obvious high-need classes. But you've got to know what the needs of your institution are. And that's obviously
right.
very different at a big school from a small school.
Right. It is all part of that strategic enrollment planning process, because if you've got enough data and you've got the people who are committed to shaping those classes, they can tell you as an admissions office what you need to go get. And it's really hard to do that at a freshman level because they don't know what they're doing. They come in and they're like, I want to be a physical therapist, and they get in and they take anatomy and physiology, and they're like, I don't want to ever see a science book ever again. I want to do business. So it's really hard to shape those classes as freshmen. You might be able to do it if you need a violin player, or you need a volleyball player, or you need something like that. But as far as academics, going and finding the transfers to fill out those majors and the classes is where it's at. And that's where I think that strategic enrollment planning process is so key. It identifies where we've got these deficiencies, where these classrooms are sitting empty, and it's our job to go and help and fill those.
So how can we do that better? How can we reach out to?
Sure. Well, I think the first key is that most universities aren't transfer friendly. The ones that are, advertise it. So when looking at some of these, I went and found, and I'll refer to it in a few minutes. I just Googled transfer friendly universities, and St. Bonaventure. If we have anybody from St. Bonaventure, chime in here. But they are, they have a whole brochure, they have a whole website about how transfer friendly they are, and it's accurate because most universities just aren't. We don't find a good way for courses to transfer. We don't make it easy on them financially. We don't provide the resources to work with them adequately. We expect them to know everything already, but we don't value their experiences in their recent college years. So they come in, oh, you've already been in college, but let us treat you like you don't, like you haven't been in college before. So I would almost say that, and I'm kind of getting out there a little bit, but if we kind of subconsciously treat them like, you didn't pick our university first, that you're not equal to the freshmen, because they didn't pick our university first. And but think about it. So Chris, pick your biggest rival, and if a student transferred from BU, have you ever thought, well, they finally saw the light and came to Stony Brook? I know that there are people out there that do that, and we shouldn't punish students for choosing elsewhere first. You may not think you do, but take a look and ask yourself, are you transfer friendly? And I think we should talk about in a couple minutes what we can do better and how we can be more transfer friendly. But I think that's what we're doing wrong, is that we're not putting ourselves in those shoes of those transfers, thinking, okay, what's it like coming from a 4-year research university to a private school? What's it like coming from a 2-year community college to a 4-year private university? What's it like transferring from a 4-year private to a huge research university like Stony Brook, where you're coming from 4,000 people to, 25,000 people at Stony Brook? That's a huge culture change, and we've got to see it through. It's almost more of a culture change than coming from high school to college, because you're already in that college mode, and we need to be more attentive to what those needs of those transfers are.
And I think it's real easy to make the assumption that because transfer students are, they do persist and they do sort of know what they want, it's easy to look at a transfer student to come in and say, oh, well, they don't really need the help because they've already been through freshman orientation, they know how to register for classes, they know how to deal with college life that we talk about. You mentioned the transition from high school to college. That transition from college to college is just as important, if not more important, because students have very different needs at that point, and it's easy to forget that.
Well, piece. But they also have the, I've already transferred once, I'll transfer again. They've already got that in their blood a little bit, and so if something goes wrong, they're not averse to, hey, I'm gonna get out of here and find somewhere where I belong.
Very, very, very good point. So what sorts of resources are out there? And I know that here we've tried very hard to do very specific sorts of reach-out kinds of programs, targeting our local community colleges here with specific resources and workshops and one-sheets that say, if you take these kinds of courses, these are the courses that are going to be able to transfer here. Our transfer matrix online, we've completely overhauled again over the course of the last year, so that students can actually take a look at their schedule and they can plug those courses into our matrix and see exactly what the equivalents are going to be here, so that they know, okay, I know what I've got in terms of credits, and I know where, what I have to go, kind of thing. And it goes back to what I talked about, was last show or the show before, about looking at the degree as a package, as not just semester by semester, not just course by course, but looking at, okay, I started at point A, I want to get to point B or C or D down the road. what do I need to do in order to get that between now and whenever the time is that I reach that point. And so having those resources available and very public. It's, everybody's got the little binder on their shelf with all the transfer credit evaluation. Make that public. Make students aware of what what options they have realistically. What majors can they get into? What majors maybe don't offer transfer admission, because we have some programs here that we don't accept transfers directly into. And so make that transparency piece, make that piece very, very transparent, I should say, so that students are comfortable making that change and know that they do have that home on your campus.
Right. So, I mean, if you asked me to make a list, hey, which I did, then here are the things where I would say here are the things that we can do to do better, to reach out to these students. First, I think if you do not have a transfer champion on your campus, find someone that will be that voice for transfers. One thing about most of us in the admissions business is that we work for our alma maters, and that we've all there are some who transferred in and then they will go to work in the admissions office, but for the most part, the vast majority, in my opinion, that I've met are alums of their institutions, and they started there as freshmen and they went all 4 years. And so to try to see things through transfers' eyes is difficult because we never did it. So you need somebody who's willing to do that, whether they're transferred in or whether they want to take the time to learn what it's like to be a transfer and just kind of clean their mind out of what their experiences are. You've got to have that champion. I think we've got to look at community colleges as partners, not competitors. I think a lot of times we think, well, you're going to go to a community college. Well, that's a terrible decision because the 4-year experience and blah, 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 and you can't be in the band, and you can't be in the football team, you can't do those things. But we need to look at them as partners, not competitors. And if it's right for us as admissions folks to encourage somebody to go to a community college because that's best for them financially, best for them academically, whatever it is, we need to encourage them to do what's best for them, because what that does is that builds that path to come back. And if you're encouraging them to go to a 2-year school, they have to go somewhere if they're going to do a 4-year degree, so why not come back to the person who, hey, suggested that they go to that 2-year institution and become partners with the community colleges and the students. I think we need strategic marketing, communication and recruiting plans targeted at those students, so the messaging is different. We need to talk about what it's like coming in here as a transfer student, have case studies from transfer students, have faculty that talk to transfer students in our marketing. Whatever it is, we need to come up with that specific plan. If you're just doing that like you're doing the freshmen and you're sending all the stuff to their home addresses in Dallas or Buffalo or wherever they hailed from, you're not communicating with them because they're not there. They're at their schools. So we need to be quick when we react to those inquiries from transfers. As far as the partnerships with the community colleges, I forgot. We need to finalize those or formalize those articulation agreements where they know as advisors at their school what's going to transfer to our school. So when students come in, Chris, you go in at a community college, you say, hey, I know I'm going to transfer. Well, hey, let me set you up so that you easily walk into to Stony Brook. And then when students come to visit, get your faculty to come, get your registrar, get somebody who can come in and spend time going through advise them to bring a transcript, and I'll go through your transcript while you're here and tell you what's going to transfer and what's not. That's the biggest question that transfers have is, how long is it going to take me to graduate, and what classes you're going to transfer, and how much is it going to be? So that's actually 3 questions. But do those special transfer visit days, do special transfer-friendly orientation sessions, and encourage faculty to be part of those. And then encourage flexibility. So if your faculty is like super rigid, I mean, they are faculty, but if they're super rigid on, hey, that's not going to transfer, encourage that flexibility to say, okay, why is this course not, why will you not take this course? And that way you at least understand and can tell them, well, hey, the math you took in this, it doesn't address this, and that's why it's not being taken. the more well versed we are. But then go to the faculty and go, seriously, do they have to have this to be successful? Why can't we offer it somewhere else? Work with your faculty and encourage flexibility on taking some of those classes. They paid good money for them. I would like to see most of those courses transfer for the majority of those students. So one of the things we do here at ACU is we have very attractive transfer scholarships. We even guarantee that if someone transfers within the first year of their high school graduation, that we will honor what they would have received as freshmen. So most people and I'll talk about this when we talk about discounting strategies for transfers in a second, but most people see that as an advantage for us. Hey, they're transferring in, they kind of forfeited their freshman scholarships. We don't want to do that if they'll transfer in a timely manner. So we'll offer that to them with that. And then we have several agreements with community colleges across the state and even advertise which courses will transfer, like you said, so that they can easily plan when they're making their schedules and deciding whether they want to transfer or not.
Definitely want to really address the transfer visit piece, which I think is so very important. It's easy to do your sort of standard admissions presentation and talk about that freshman experience and all those kinds of things. And we actually literally just last week started our first pilot transfer sessions where transfers come, they bring their transcripts, and then actually we have our transfer advisors here. They give us their transcripts, they go and they sit and they go through our session, the question and answer. While they're in the question and answer session, we're in the back room doing credit evaluations so that at the end of the session, we go out and we can sit down with them one-on-one and talk about here's what you got, here's what you need, all those kinds of things. It's basically the same thing we would be doing anyway, but it's just having that transfer targeted thing. We put it up as a pilot on our website and it filled up with reservations in a week because students want that. And we still have transfers at our regular information sessions and tours too, but they, I think, really appreciated having that real targeted, oh, this is something that's really going to help me in a really concrete way kind of a thing. So that working with advising and faculty to really get that credit piece really important. And I think the other thing to address, one of the other things you said, faculty don't think about enrolling students. They just think about teaching classes and their end of things. I met a couple weeks ago with one of our faculty from one of our departments that's doing a particular program. We were talking about how to build up interest in the program, and it's an upper division program, so it's not a freshman targeted program. And so I was talking about, hey, let's use the community college and give students a plan to say, hey, spend 2 years at Suffolk and then you can start in this program as a junior. And so I said to him, talking about a fall 2017 class, and like that's space language to him. He was like, that's 5 semesters away. I can't think 5 semesters away. I'm thinking 1 semester away. I'm planning for spring now. I can't think about a million years. But the earlier you get that pipeline of making those connections, then that sort of runs itself. And you build that piece in, and students know that they sort of have that home. To advise students, it's okay to advise students to go somewhere else. And I know that's anathema to admissions folks, but it's okay to not have everyone come to your school. It's not always the best fit, as you said, financially. Students may need to stay home. There may be a campus that requires freshmen to live on campus. Student needs to stay home for a couple of years. Well, make those years productive and give them that target at your campus so that you're not losing that student, and that student's still on your radar, and you can do follow-up communications and all the things that you would need to do so that that student knows, I've got, your school in my head down the road. Our local community college does advertising at before the movies on the big screens, and they have a student, and they hold up a Suffolk Community College T-shirt, and they say, I started at Suffolk, and then they drop the T-shirt and they're wearing a Harvard sweatshirt or they're wearing a whatever, and they're saying, I started at Suffolk and now look where I am. There's no reason we can't flip that script and say, I'm at Stony Brook, but I started at School X, and this is transferring is easy. Transferring is it's something you can do. It's something you can plan for. It's something even if you haven't planned for it, it's possible to do, and it's easy to do, and to really reach out.
Yeah, and it's kind of a culture thing, isn't it? I mean, when they come in, they feel like they're behind socially, and so academically, it may not be as big a deal as we're making it, but it's the social piece, and I think that's where we need to put our lenses on, so that we can look at, okay, you know what, they're coming in as a sophomore, but they don't know where the cafeteria is. They're coming in as a junior, but they don't know how campus cash works, or where to go for tailgating, or what time the bookstore closes. So I mean, they have to learn those things. Plus the fact that all they're walking into social situations where all these friend groups have already clumped, and so I think it's culturally that not only from the administrative piece, but somebody in student life needs to get involved to say, hey, we need to make our campus not just friendly from administrative aspects, but we need to look at it from a life aspect, and that this is comfortable to come in. Extroverts are welcome, introverts are welcome, and here's how we integrate you and make sure that you graduate and feel good about doing it.
You had started to talk about scholarships and transfer discounting and all that. So address that if you would.
Sure, and I'm sorry, I don't know why when I'm not on mute, you're getting feedback, so I apologize for that. So, you know, most enrollment research would show you that transfers are less price elastic than freshmen, which is meaning, for those of you who aren't well versed in scaling curves, they are willing to enroll with less scholarships, with less discounting. While that may be true, I personally think that we're taking advantage of that. So yeah, they may be less price elastic, and they'll pick our schools even if we don't give them scholarships. But why do we take advantage of that? Why is that a big deal? And so people would say, you know, we should discount them less because they have a shorter list of schools that they would transfer to. They already know what they're looking for. They already know the program they're desiring, the location, the type of culture. They're a little more committed, so you don't have to scholarship them as much to get there. And really, I think we're taking advantage of that, because what we're doing is we're putting our bottom line ahead of the student experience. I just don't think that. I don't like that. But I do like things like St. Bonaventure, which says they have transfer awards of almost 50% of their tuition. It is based on college GPA, but I mean, that's a lot of money to offer a transfer who's never set foot on your campus. That's a big deal. And so if we think about what is it that how can we offset somebody's situation? Don't just say, here's $4,000 for transferring, congratulations. We actually take a look at them individually and say, okay, can this person make this work? Is this a good decision for you financially to transfer? I think we owe it to them. We owe it to ourselves and our sleeping ability at night to help every student make sure that they can pay for what they're getting themselves into.
The students are more conscious of affordability than they ever have been, and so you know, I think that's certainly a really valid point. But again, it comes down to, you know, making your campus be home to these folks, and making sure that they've got that place where they feel like this is a place where I matter. You know, whether big or small, it's the important part is that students are forging that connection so that they persist, so that they graduate. So we're running short on time, so I do want to give you the opportunity to any closing thoughts you may have, or anything else you wanted to throw at us.
Yeah, I sure forgot to unmute you. Sorry. So I think if I was going to put a bow on it, I would say that if we pay attention to our transfer students, I think it provides opportunity to enroll more students. Yeah, you can do that with less financial aid expenditures, but basically at its core, they're a market that we don't think of when we talk about increasing enrollment. We talk about a freshman number. We talk about new students, but we don't think about transfers, and they're just kind of this add-on. I don't want us to forget them. When they go to a 2-year school, a 4-year school becomes a more affordable option now. To get a 4-year degree, it keeps them on pace to graduate and have those learning experiences that we think are important while keeping their debt load down. They have lower debt burden, they have lower out-of-pocket costs, and so it becomes a win-win venture for all of us.
All right. Well, with that, hang on a second. There we go. So with that, I want to thank Corey Patterson for joining me on the show this afternoon, and I hope you guys got a little bit of some insight and some thoughts, sort of thinking a little differently about your transfer population and making sure that they are as invested, if not more so, in your campus than your freshman class. So Admissions Live will be back in 2 weeks, live from Portland, Oregon. I'm very, very excited. Higher Ed Live going on the road. We will be at the Higher Ed Web Conference in Portland, Oregon. My co-host Nicole and I will co-host a live show. For those of you who will be at the conference, we're going to have guests. We're going to have musical guests. I don't know. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be a good time. So make sure that you check that out. We'll have more information coming out in the next couple of days. It will likely be later in the day, so we will likely postpone the 1 o'clock start time. So thanks always to our program sponsors, M. Stoner and Chegg and ACU, of course, and Welcome to College. Coming up on Wednesday on Student Affairs Live, we talked a couple weeks ago with Time Magazine, Eliza Gray, about sexual assault on college campuses, and Higher Ed Live, Student Affairs Live is taking that to sort of the next level, and they're addressing sexual assault on campus on Wednesday. Heather Shea Gasser has a number of guests. Very, very looking forward to that conversation as well. That'll be 1 o'clock Eastern time, of course. Get reminders about this and other great shows by subscribing to the Higher Ed Live newsletter at higheredlive.com. Browse the archives, podcast. You can have me in your ears while you're working out, which would be fantastic, or driving to work, or whatever you want. Higher Ed Live is a great resource for you, and we do appreciate you taking the time to join us, whether you're live or you're watching this on the YouTubes. So thanks very much. I'm Chris Dorso, back for more next month with Admissions Live.